Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome back to That's English.
Hello. Today's programme is a bit different from the last one. We're going to look at the English language from a different angle, desde un punto de vista diferente.
Yes, we're going to look at some of the ways you can be polite in English. For example, how should you address people? Should you call them Mr. or Mrs., or can you use their first name?
And how can you say what you mean politely, educadamente? Sometimes it's not what you say, but the way that you say it that's most important.
And we'll see how British people sometimes say one thing when they really mean something else.
So, to start with, we went out of the studio and we asked people this question. What do you like people to call you? ¿Cómo le gusta que le llamen?
I like to be called by my first name, Julia.
I like to be called Gareth. That's my first name.
I suppose I like my first name to be used most of the time. It's more friendly. But there are some situations where it's a bit too personal, and I prefer Mr. Harvey.
For all my friends, I like to be addressed by my Christian name, my first name. People I don't know, Mrs. to begin with, but I very soon revert to my Christian name.
Well, certainly on a social occasion, I think I much prefer people to call me by my first name. If I'm dealing in business, then I think I like to keep it a bit more formal until I know somebody well.
Yes, I think I'd go along with that. I prefer Christian name on social occasions, but it comes occasionally as a bit of a surprise to be called by your Christian name straight off by someone you've never met.
So, most of those people agreed. When they're doing business or talking to people they haven't met before, they prefer people to use their surname and Mr. or Mrs.
But they like their friends to use their first names, their Christian names. So it's the same as Spain.
Pero veamos cuál es la reacción ante formas más coloquiales.
For example, nicknames, diminutivos familiares.
I like my friends to call me Derek, but some of my best friends call me by my nickname, or one of my nicknames, which is Deza.
I'm usually just called Louisa, Lou for short.
I like people to call me by my first name, Sean, or if they're good friends, to call me Shawnee.
I like people to use my first name, which is Tamsin, because I like it. It comes from Cornwall. But when they use my surname, which is Harwood, I prefer them to use Ms. rather than Miss, because, well, I think it's more sophisticated.
All my friends call me Chris, but my family, they prefer to call me Christopher, and family friends, they do the same. At school, everyone calls me Anchor, because that's my surname.
He's called 3 different things. Chris by his friends, Christopher by his family, and at school he's called Anchor. That's his surname.
And Tamsin prefers Ms. Harwood because it's more sophisticated and modern.
Ms. We use it for both married and single women.
Mr. Elliot?
What? Who, me?
You see, you have to use the right name for the right person at the right time.
Well, Ms. Collinridge, shall we go on with the programme?
Yes, Tony.
Well now, in Britain, people don't always say exactly what they mean.
De hecho, algunas veces no se debe decir lo que realmente se piensa. If you do, people will think you're being rude, grosero.
For example, if you want to criticize, criticar someone, or if you want them to do something that they don't want to do, then you must use a roundabout way, una forma indirecta.
We've got a story for you. One person wants the other person to do something, but it's very difficult for him to say it.
Yes. Here's part 1 of our new series.
¿Cómo ser británico?
Being polite.
Vanessa's coming this afternoon.
Really?
It would be nice if the flat were a bit tidier. I'm going to tidy up.
Good.
And then I'm going to put some smarter clothes on. It's nice to dress more smartly when you have a visitor, isn't it? Have you thought about changing?
No.
I think it would be marvellous if you wore the jacket without the holes.
Do you?
Don't you?
Don't I what?
Don't you think the jacket without the holes is nicer than that one?
Nicer? What do you mean? Don't you like this jacket?
Well, I'm not sure that I do, actually.
Oh.
And wouldn't you like to put a clean shirt on?
No, I wouldn't. I'm reading the paper.
These trousers aren't the smartest ones you've got, are they?
Look, what exactly are you trying to say? Why don't you say what you mean?
All right. I don't like what you're wearing. In fact, I think your clothes are disgusting.
There's no need to be rude.
There's no need to be rude. That's the problem, you see. Sometimes, if you say what you really mean, people think you're rude.
Let's look more closely at some of the things the man said. He really wanted to say, I want you to change your clothes. I want you to dress more smartly. But what did he say?
It's nice to dress more smartly when you have a visitor, isn't it?
It's nice to dress more smartly when you have a visitor, isn't it?
Then he wanted to say, I don't like that jacket because it's got holes. But what did he say?
I think it would be marvellous if you wore the jacket without the holes.
I think it would be marvellous if you wore the jacket without the holes.
Usually, British people would understand all that. When someone says,
I think it would be marvellous if...
they know that the other person is really asking them to do something. Tony, I think it would be marvellous if you straightened your tie.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, and Vanessa?
Yes?
I think it would be nice if you sat up in your chair.
Of course.
Thank you. Es importante que la gente no piense que eres maleducado. Cuando oigas hablar a los británicos, fíjate en esta forma indirecta de decir las cosas y trata de utilizarla tú también.
That would be marvellous.
But now, it's time for the news. Not today's news. Our news is 100 years old. What was happening in the 1890s?
Good evening. Here is the news from That's English. First, the headlines. A new kind of moving carriage comes onto the streets. And in sport, a lady plays golf. But today's main story is the new carriage designed and built by Mr. Carl Benz. It's a bit slower than a horse, but some people are saying that it might be an important type of transport in the next century. Over to our current affairs correspondent, who has the full story. Frank, what is this fantastic new machine called?
Well, Trevor, scientists have invented a new word. They've put together the Greek word auto, which means by oneself, and the Latin word mobilis, which means moving.
So what is the new word, Frank? The automobilis?
That's right, Trevor.
A strange name. But Frank, it's a sort of carriage with no horses. That is, a horseless carriage, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Trevor. But in fact, some people have made the expression horseless carriage simpler. They are calling it a car.
A car. I see. Strange word. And now, sport. For the first time, a woman has played golf. And she hit the ball quite well. A woman playing golf. What will they think of next? But that's all from me until tomorrow night. Till then, good night.
What was that word they used for the first car? The automobilis? They didn't get that right, did they?
And I didn't know that the word car is short for horseless carriage.
Yes. At first it was a sort of nickname. Then car became the popular word.
I'd like to look quickly at two common expressions that you hear on news programmes. First, what's the English for los titulares?
First, the headlines.
The headlines.
And did you hear the words for especialista en temas de actualidad?
Over to our current affairs correspondent, who has the full story.
Our current affairs correspondent.
But that's all we have time for. It would be very nice if you joined us next time. Bye for now.
Bye. See you soon.